Ladies and gentlemen, Jay, you're all set to start when you're ready?
I think it's doing its thing here.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order and get started. Welcome all, and thank you to HCAM, better known now as Harbor Media, for filming us tonight. Thank you, guys. Yeah, you'll need the mic. A couple of quick announcements, and we need to vote on the minutes. Or if you've decided to hold off on that. You've decided to hold off on minutes till next week. Okay, we'll get them together. So, as you all remember, before we figured out how much money we had for this year, kind of in total, we went off through a list of past projects that still have money encumbered at the treasurer's office. And we did the oldest ones first and figured that some of them should have been back by now and made some decisions. One of those decisions had to do with Whitney Wharf Bridge. And just to give a little quickie background, the bridge was voted in 2012 maybe originally, and 2 years went by because the builder was in Florida. I don't have to get into the whole story, but anyway, then they came back, they needed a little bit more, and then oops, we forgot to put lights on the bridge because it's 70 feet long and over water, so we had to come back for light money, and we gave them another $20,000 at that point. When the project was voted on at town meeting, there was no mention of sort of the finishing pieces at the end. It was left kind of open. And they still have another, what is it, 6,000 with us? Or something else?
3,000.
3,000?
Right here.
Okay. I'm not seeing it, but that's okay. Oh, 3,900, okay, about $4,000 left. And they had asked this spring to have planters put at the end where it's kind of dangerous looking, like a child could fall into the brink, and very unfinished looking. And I guess at that point Bill Reardon had talked to us about it, and we extended another 6 or 8 months or something. And then when we got to looking at our outstanding money, we realized it had not been done. We hadn't heard anything about it. So the vote was taken, and it was unanimous to claw back that $4,000 back into the till and count it in as this year's money. At which point, Bill called and said, could we make one more jab at this? Could we make another? And then we said yes, and he immediately left town. Is that about it, Deirdre? So Deirdre's in front of us tonight to fill in, but you're on the committee, and that's great. So you want to take it from there, what you'd like to do at this point?
Sure. I'm sorry. Carol had mentioned that the pool, you'd want to cover this now versus jumping into the pool.
I have it first on my agenda,
great.
but
Sorry.
is that a problem?
No.
Let me just, here we go. Thank
You need the lights off, or are you okay?
We should be okay. Thank you, yes, thank you, Carol, and to the committee, thank you. As Carol mentioned, my name is Deirdre Anderson, and I'm the vice chair of the town's Harbor Development Committee, working closely with Bill Reardon, who is out of town, and with Alan Peralt, former chair of the Harbor Development Committee and now chair of the Bathing Beach Trustees. And as Carol mentioned, I'm going to go here. Oops. As you all know, the Whitney Wharf Bridge originated out of the 2007 Hingham Harbor Master Plan. And, you know, we're right down here, which gave us this early iteration of the 2007 plan. 3 Otis Street is one of the 3 remaining private parcels on the harbor. And the Whitney Wharf Bridge's goal was to get citizens safely, you know, along the harbor walk in a way that we would still be able to traverse there, even though it's private property. And so, as these plans were developed many years ago, and this project, as you awarded in 2012, was to give this key component of our harbor walk this cohesive sense of place and history. And it is gorgeous. Finally, in 2016, permitting alone, Roger, was almost a year working with the Army Corps of Engineers, Chapter 90, because it's waterfront. And so finally, the bridge was completed in 2016. And so the whole project has been longer than the 2 years allotted in typical CPC funds. And it has been very popular. If you do a quick social media search for Hingham Harbor. This is on the social media site, Instagram. All of these pictures pop up, and they're taken from the Whitney Wharf Bridge. You have people using the bridge, looking out, having their coffee on the bridge, and so it's been very warmly received. And what we were hoping, though, is as everything has taken much longer, was that with our finishes, you can see this was when the bridge first went up and it wasn't even stained yet because the wood had to sit for about 6 months before it could get painted. We were benches and planters and even a lip on the waterside railing so that people could comfortably lean over, put a beverage, put some food. So benches, planters, and lips were the goals of some of the finishing touches. And the bench was donated. That's Paul Lasordo led that effort. That's him on the right, former HDC member, donated bench. But we still have these need for a planter. It's not just be able to stick up. This is 3 Otis Street, which you all well know is Red Eye Roasters and Bear Cove Marina. And it's about 6.5 to 7 feet in that void between the bridge and the building. And so we need to build up a platform from the ground to then be able to put a marine-worthy planter, which we could buy retail, on a platform that doesn't sink it, and then we could put a hardy, low-maintenance evergreen or something there to certainly make it look attractive, but also keep, heaven forbid, if anybody was sitting on the rails, they weren't gonna fall in, or trash wouldn't get collected there. And so these are the key places now that we're trying to ask for you to not respectfully claw back that money so we can finish this job. We did get an estimate from Ben Wilcox, and no, Ben isn't the only vendor in town, but this is a historic district. He's a very well-respected and dependable person to work with and knows the site, and that bid we didn't get until the middle of December. So again, we're embarrassed that it has taken this long, but it really is, these are just some finishing touches that if we could respectfully ask to keep that money allocated, we can get that work done and really cap off this project that has been very well received. And that's about it. And as I said, we can get commercial planners that would be sturdier for marine environment. We could also have Ben build those, whatever is easiest and less expensive. So, oops, sorry, this is getting into Alan's. So that's our pitch. If you would, help us finish those last, we would be so grateful.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Who's going to plant it in the water?
The Harbor Development Committee will plant it, will hopefully get donated materials. And we have worked with Bob Weeks, who is the tenant at 3 Otis, who's Red Eye Roasters, that, obviously this has been a big boon for their business during the more temperate climates, because people can go out there and have their coffee. And they said that they would, be able to help us water it. And we'll check on it too, as well with HDC. But again, our goal would be anything planted would be extremely low maintenance and hardy for a marine environment, just kind of like what Alan and the Bathing Beach trustees did at the Bathing Beach with the Rosa Rugosa, or just very simple, that at least finishes the look and doesn't leave these gaps.
Okay, they're asking you to revote, so questions?
Is the amount of money this?
4,000.
Okay, the 39 million.
And I have a Ben Wilcox estimate for the lip and the planter platforms. I can pass these around.
So, just so I understand or refresh my memory, the reason why we are where we are is that the application wasn't complete on time.
No, they came back to us and asked for an extension so that we could finish this off. One concern was that the word planter never came up in any of the original requests. But there is wording about finishing off or something, or there's an understanding that with any project, you want it to be complete. The other was that we just hadn't heard. Time was going by, and now it's December, and we hadn't heard a word, and so we just That were the, sort of the two main reasons that I picked up from that meeting.
I guess I would have a question. I mean, the cost here is $4,650, so, we're talking about $3,900.
And that's where you can see in Ben's estimate, he's actually building the planters, whereas we would probably have that as a part of the bid that we would renegotiate with him, that he just builds the platform and secures a planter, a planter that we purchase outright, that's marine, that is certified for marine environment.
When did you ask Ben for his quote?
Bill asked it for him in the fall, and he emailed it to Bill on December 13th, even though it's dated October. And he just, as you well know, so many contractors, it's just very, very difficult to get estimates at this point.
The reason I'm asking is Bill was reminded last April that it was already a year past when the money was supposed to be spent, and then from April to the fall, he waited to get one quote. So there's a real lag, and the time was already up.
Bob, what are you thinking? Concentrating.
Yeah. I think we should do it. I mean, we've got to fill that in, I think. But I can't account for the timing.
Bob's point seems reasonable to me.
Bill?
Yeah, I think we should finish the project.
Initially, I wouldn't have seen it as a problem, because a gap is sort of natural, but it sounds as though it's pretty well thought out now.
Yeah,
Might as well
6
go
feet
ahead.
down and kids playing on it.
Yeah. That's a good point, too, because you might climb over. Yeah, I go along with that.
So you will stay under the 4,000 in terms of our, and,
39.
okay.
I have a little concern about the procedural laxity, but, you know, I've been guilty of such things too, so.
I do too, but I think, the decisions for this bridge alone were made by other CPCs before we were here. They wanted it, they voted for it 3 times. They backed more money for it to finish it off. I'd hate to be the one that didn't finish it. I'd hate to be the committee that,
Can I ask, though, is there a way that, I'm always concerned about establishing a precedent, because we have clawed back money from other projects that I'm well aware of that could have used money to add on or to finish off, if those are the words. So, for me, I'd like to be able to at least point to something in the original application that says that there was something finishing off. Because the planter was never, I was here for that, there was never a talk about planters, particularly when we were talking about lights. Now, maybe there was earlier on in the application, so is there any in the application where we can point to something? Because I agree with you, if we establish a precedent, every time we claw back, somebody's gonna come forward and say, well, we could always finish it off and paint the edges or fill in a gap or whatever, and I'm not suggesting it's not a good idea and it's a small amount, but we've clawed back smaller amounts previously. So it would be nice to be able to point to something.
there really isn't, to be honest. That's it.
So,
Vicki,
Wait, isn't
we
the-
discussed that, because I know that had
Yes.
come up as a concern, and Bill was hoping you would see just the permission to work with subcontractors as a general, a general umbrella to cover finishing touches, that, there is language that says permission to work with subcontractors beyond the York Bridge concepts.
And maybe this is a lesson for all of us as we're writing up the article for the warrant, that when it is something about construction, Roger could probably help us with this, that maybe a little phrase goes in at the end, and all things needed to finish the project, or something that leaves it open a little bit in future projects. Is anybody not comfortable voting at this point? Whatever your vote's going to be?
I think it
Such a
just shows
chatty
how hard it
crowd.
is to anticipate every detail in the design when you get
Yeah.
the overall concept.
And we're not
And then you back up and say, oh, what about
pros,
that?
yeah. We're housewives and bankers and lawyers and all kinds of things, so,
Right, right, right.
yeah. Anyone want to propose?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
We have a motion to approve. Anyone more
Seconded.
discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? One opposed. Okay, thank you. That's it, thank you. Okay, we're going on to, we're going to be a little bit out of order, and we're going to talk with Jay McGrail about the country club pool first, because he has a scheduling problem, and then we'll go on with the others.
Hello.
Hi, Jay.
Thank you guys for allowing me to switch it up a little bit. We actually have our employee Christmas party tonight.
Oh, a little late,
Started at
huh?
7. I guess in the restaurant business, it's typical to do it after the new year, so. 'Cause they're
Get the
busy.
leftovers to you?
Parties, yeah, cheaper deals, so. Roger, did you want to start with the stuff that we talked about?
Sure. So, Jay and his group have been back and forth working with our office, engineering office, and been tracking this very closely. The selectmen have asked us to track it closely as well. And one of the things we've done is not only look at the financials that Jay is going to look at, talk to you about today, but the technical aspects of the project, working with the architect. And to this point, we're pretty happy with the thoroughness, if you will, of the work. But the other thing we wanted to make everyone aware of, one of the things that we do out of our office, Carol and I look at each project in terms of its eligibility for funding from a statutory standpoint. What can CPA pay for and what can it not pay for? And there are rules and laws that we have to follow associated with that. With this particular project, because it's multifaceted, it includes, and again, Jay will talk about this, an indoor pool, an outdoor pool, potentially an athletic, a workout space, a gym, if you will. There are certain things that CPA will not pay for, and those aspects have been carved out in terms of Jay's request. Some of the things it won't pay for example, is the gym area itself. It's not allowed as under the CPA requirements. It will pay for the exterior pool. It will pay for the baths and the storage and the space associated with that. So ostensibly what Jay's going to present is, in terms of the funding and the work that this committee needs to consider, is allowable, based on our determination, our research, allowable CPA use. We've also got a call into John Coughlin. We're pretty confident that he'll come, John Coughlin being a town municipal attorney, that he's going to come back with the same response. So we're waiting to hear back from him. So with that, Jay, I'll turn it back over to you. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer those as well.
All right, great. Thanks, Roger. Thanks both you guys for all the work that you've done helping me with this. I appreciate it. So a lot's happened since the last time that I was here. I think it was the beginning of November, mid-November, with this project. Last time I was here, we went through all the different options as far as scenarios of where we were looking at the facility on the property, the different locations, and we kind of honed in on one. Since then, what happened is I got the financial results back, the financial feasibility results back on the indoor-outdoor facility with the multi-purpose room. So the original iteration of it was an outdoor pool, an indoor 6-lane lap pool, and a building was a bathhouse, and above the bathhouse we had 2 multi-purpose rooms that we were going to use for a different variety of things, potential rowing in there, different. We do a lot of like functions at the club where we have small groups that come and get together, but we didn't look specifically at the fitness because we weren't sure how that worked with our whole scheme of what we were looking at. And unfortunately, when I got that financial plan back, it came back that the first year alone, the operations loss was over $300,000 for that facility, for the 6-lane lap pool, the outdoor family pool, and the multi-purpose room. So, the committee that I'm working with, the group that I work with, we kind of sat back and said, all right, well, this is exactly why we phased this way, so that we'd be able to go through all these different ways and opportunities. But we were a little disheartened about it, for sure. And then the way this project's gone from the beginning is something happened the next day. I got a phone call, or I got an opportunity that came up. I got in touch with a gentleman that was involved in the Wellesley feasibility study for the pool that they're building in Wellesley, and very knowledgeable on what they had done in Wellesley and the process that they went through for their fight. They have a 9-acre parcel that they're looking to develop into a pool facility similar to what we're looking at. They're involving an ice skating rink. We're not, obviously, but with this version of the project. And what I found out was that with that development of that mix of uses, it would be hard for us ever to make money, no matter how we tweaked it and what we did. And one of the things that we looked at the Wellesley study that really transformed this project financially is that warm body of water inside, and the different ways you can utilize that to make money. So we kind of went back, basically mid-November, we started from scratch all over again. We said, well, this isn't working, so let's look at what does work. Let's look at operations from the beginning. Instead of putting rectangles on paper and trying to make something work that way, let's look at programming and figure out what works from a programming standpoint, and then build and design the pool after that. So what we did was we came up with a new plan. The new plan this is the first slide of the plan. Basically, it's an indoor-outdoor facility. This is the first level of the bathhouse area. So we have a 6-lane indoor lap pool, and we have 1,000 square feet warm water body of water. It's about a 95 degrees temperature. It's our plant, and then we also have the outdoor family pool still for the summertime. The idea with the indoor warm pool is twofold. We're going to separate the pool with a portable, removable bulkhead in the middle. So we'd have basically it'd be one filter, one body of water, but we'd be able to separate it out. And we'd have a 500 square foot body of water and a 500 square foot body of water. And one section of that, we'd be able to take all of our Learn to Swim programming and our adult aquatic exercise and do it in that portion of the warm pool. And then on the other side, we're looking at different physical therapy opportunities and how we can utilize that for physical therapy. It's a definite up and coming thing is warm water physical therapy, and it's a real good opportunity for us, which I'll go into a little bit in the future here. But when we were just looking at the 6-lane lap pool, we were beating our heads up against the wall with timing and mixes of use to try to figure out how to make the most money that we possibly could. And we had competing interests there. We had memberships that we were trying to deal with, and if you come and you pay $500 or something for a family membership and there's no fitness component to it, and all you want to do is swim, and I have the lap pool filled up with Learn to Swim or swim team, you're going to be pretty frustrated if that's what you've paid the money to be able to do and you can't swim because there's no lanes available. At the same time, if we're going to build an indoor pool in Hingham here through the town of Hingham, we want to be able to service the swim teams of the high school and such. So it was a lot of competing interests, and by being able to add the warm water pool, we were able to pull the Learn to Swim program out of the 6-lane lap pool schedule, and we were able to actually take in 3 swim teams and still have lanes available for membership. And the 3 swim teams that we've contacted and had conversations with are the Notre Dame team, the Hingham team, boys and girls team, and there's a USA team in Hanover that's very interested in utilizing this pool. That's kind of like an AAU basketball version of swimming. And they pay actually a pretty high market rate, and they utilize the pool for a long season from September till June. So it really allowed us to do by adding this warm body of water, it allowed us to do all the things that we originally kind of wanted to do with this one 6-lane lap pool and maximize revenue. So the opportunity with physical therapy is unique. The Weymouth Club has a facility that's similar to this, where they outsource their physical therapy in a warm pool like that. We've had an opportunity through some relationships in Hingham to have conversations with South Shore Hospital about potentially entering into a lease agreement with them where they would actually do the therapy in the pool. It'd be a great opportunity for residents of Hingham to be able to get physical therapy after joint replacement and things like that done in town here. Right now, if you're interested in something like that, you'd either have to go to the Weymouth Club or to South Shore Hospital. So it's a pretty unique opportunity for us, and it generates a good amount of money. It changed the dynamics of the financials when we added the warm body of water. This is the upstairs of that the above, basically the locker rooms. So Mark and I were just talking. So the way this shook out is after I heard from feedback from you guys after your meeting in early December that you wanted as much information as you can before you voted, I really pushed on the financial guys and the architects to come up with this plan ASAP. Take what we've talked about with this warm body of water and the fitness and come up with the plan. And I'd originally talked to them about doing a 2,000 square foot fitness room and a 2,000 square foot multi-purpose room. And I got this back on Friday. I sent it to you. I'm going through it today, and I said, geez, the rooms are a lot smaller than I had originally thought, you know. So I'm going to go back to them and talk to them about why weren't they able to do the 2,000 in each room? Is it because of space? Is there an issue there with space? But the long and short of it is, even in this version of it, you know, we could knock that wall down and have the one fitness room, basically, and then carve out an area where we could do multi-purpose activities like childcare. You know, obviously, that's something that we want to be able to offer, and whether it's in a corner of the multi-purpose room or if its own little area, that's basically, these are just walls that can be moved and you know, built any way we want them to based on what our needs are. But the fitness component is important to understand, because when we looked at the overall financials of how we're going to charge people to use this facility, when I looked at, we did a lot of, there's a lot that went into, you know, what comparable facilities were charging for costs. You know, we looked at all the different facilities in the area, everything from, you know, Webb's to the Weymouth Club to the different Ys. And when you just have aquatics and you don't have a fitness component, you know, your max that you could charge for a year-round family membership is about $500, $600 at the most, when you don't have that fitness component. By adding the fitness component, it goes up a lot. You know, for the model, the financial model, the business plan that you guys have, I don't know if you noticed, but we're looking at a family membership of $975 for a family membership for a year-round facility. You start looking at the Hanover Y. The Hanover Y has a much larger fitness facility, you know, 6,000 square foot fitness facility, but they have an indoor pool. They have a warm pool. They have an outdoor family pool, and they have fitness. And they're charging $1,400 a year for their family membership. So granted, this facility has a smaller fitness component to it, but it's basically apples to apples, you know, when you start looking at what they have to offer there. So at $975, you know, that's still a lot less than the Hanover Y, and we think it's a pretty, you know, pretty good price point. So it gives us room to grow too if we think that there's room to grow. So what we have today, you know, that I can tell you is, you know, we have the location finalized. Everyone's decided that we're working with as a group that the location over by the driving range that I showed you guys at the walkthrough is the best site for this facility. We have a general design put together, finalized. I mean, this is the plan. This is the project that we want to move forward with. That was with a 3D version of the indoor facility, a 3D version of the outdoor facility. Now, these are all things that at our last meeting we didn't have. This one?
Well, that one I saw, that's when I didn't see it.
Yep.
This is where the hill's behind it?
Yep, that's the hill, actually. That is the hill that he used in the vision. We have the program. You know, we have the child care component figured out. We have the programs figured out, how we're going to utilize the space. We have a business plan. We have the financial analysis done for this project. You know, other things that have come up in the minutes from you guys and talking with Carol from the last meeting is where the Board of Selectmen are with this project. I've gone in front of the Board of Selectmen multiple times on this project. My liaison is Karen Johnson. I've had lots of conversations with her. I work for the Board of Selectmen. They've instructed me to move forward with this project. Now, granted, they don't have, actually, that you had more information than they did until Friday afternoon when I sent them all the information that you have here. But you know, I've been instructed to continue to move forward. You know, they've had multiple opportunities to stop my work if it didn't make sense. They've had me continue to work. So there's a comfort level there. And moving forward, they're going to play an integral role, the Board of Selectmen, in how this project shakes out. So if we're successful with you guys to fund the portion of the construction documents, once we finalize the feasibility study, and we're about 75 to 80% there, the meat of the report is done. What we need to do is finalize some of the traffic stuff, and I'll go through what's left before I finish up. Put it in binding, and it becomes a document, you know, but this is the guts of it that I've given you. We'll meet with the Board of Selectmen and determine, you know, how we're going to move forward with funding the capital costs and the construction costs of the project. You know, there's some different opportunities there through debt through the club and through fundraising, but that will be there. You know, we're going to give them all this data that I've come up with and say, you know, what do you guys think about how we should move forward with this project? And you know, they'll have an important role moving forward in that. But what I wanted to kind of reiterate is with the $300,000 that we're looking for, basically, you know, we're not going to spend that money if the Board of Selectmen want us not to move forward. It's a placeholder that we're asking you for. You know, placehold $300,000. If the Board of Selectmen, through all of this, decided that the best course of action is to not move forward, that $300,000 is your money. It sits there for you to use however, you know, it affects your funding this year and other projects that are in front of us and behind me here, but we're not going to spend that money anyway. The only way we'd move forward with the construction documents is once we have the finalized feasibility study and the Board of Selectmen are comfortable with a funding plan moving forward, and then we'd start that work ASAP. Like this spring or as soon as the funds are available would be the hope to be able to do that. The reasons why, if we're not able to do this, it hurts us right now, is if you aren't gracious enough to fund this $300,000, then I have no game plan moving forward until we take this project to town meeting. That means I can't start that construction document work until that time. So if we're a year away from going to town meeting for funding the entire project, that means I'm another year or 8 months away from the construction documents. By doing this now, it allows me to, when we go to town meeting next year for funding, to be able to have a shovel-ready project. So as soon as the funding's available and we're ready to go, we start digging holes, and working on the project. This is a CPC project that is income producing. I think that's important. You guys all know that. You've been very gracious with how you've funded this in the past. I went back and through some of the group that I worked with, and we looked at the master plans in Hingham through 2002 and 2014, and this clearly fits in with the recreational plan, master plan that the town of Hingham put together. Bill's going to go through a couple of things, but I'll wrap up in that we have a commitment from fundraisers to be able to move forward with this project. And like I mentioned this before, but it's really important. For them to be able to fundraise efficiently, they need to see a commitment from the town that they're behind and the town is supportive. Through your board and through town meeting, that commitment's realized. And it gives them the backbone to be able to start the fundraising that's needed to complete this capital costs of this project, which are significant. We have a great group of fundraisers that have had a lot of success with the high school fields project that are behind this and want to help us try to get this forward. So in wrapping up, just what's left with the feasibility study, we want to do some survey work. So we think we have a great plan. We think that this plan and the programming behind it would work, and it's what the community wants. But we want to do some survey work with the community to kind of backbone that, to know that this is what people are looking for, and these are the different opportunities. We want to continue to do more socialization of the project. And then lastly, and I think importantly, we're going to do peer review of the finances that I've given you. I have an opportunity through a relationship I developed with the consultant that did the Wellesley project to hire him, which the club is. We've decided we'll invest the funds. It's $5,000. We'll invest the $5,000 out of the operations of the South Shore Country Club to hire this Wellesley consultant, this ISG group, to do peer review of all of these financial data, so that at the end of the day, it's not one guy looking at this plan and saying, this is how I think we could do. We'll peer review the financial data, and we'll have that information too. Based on the Wellesley study, our financial data is conservative. I mean, they were looking at us at a large profit in year one, and we're looking at a little bit more conservative than that. In wrapping up, the top is what was in the report that you guys have in front of you, the financial data. It shows the 50,000 in the red in the first year and then basically break even by the second year. The bottom, I wanted to just point out how quickly that can change one way or the other. If we went up to a $1,200 for a family membership, like I said, the Weymouth Club, or the Y in Hanover is $1,400. And then also we have the opportunity, and the financial consultant that I hired was very uncomfortable with putting perspective and costs and revenue associated with advertising, because it's kind of all what you make of it. Like how hard you work to bring in advertising inside a facility is how much money you're going to make. And that's purely advertising inside our facility. So that's putting, Herb Chambers sign inside the facility, things that we can do inside to help generate revenue. But when I looked at the Wellesley model, they estimated 5% of gross revenue. So I just kind of stole that and plugged it in. But you can see these opportunities there. And then there's a few other things that definitely are not included. One is the opportunity that we have with South Shore Hospital. That will have to be an RFP that's issued if that moves forward, but we're waiting for some, they're going to put together a proposal for us so we can decide if that makes sense. And I did put some numbers in there for therapy, but I think that the South Shore Hospital opportunity might be better than what I've plugged in. So Bill wants to follow up with a couple of quick points, and then we'll turn it over to questions.
Hi, Bill Friend, Chairman of the Country Club Committee. Jay's done most of the detail information for you. I just had a couple simple facts to say. The pool was built in the 1950s and redone in '85. The pool is failing. We don't know how long the pool will last. We just got another report back that it's safe and for us to keep operating right now, but we won't know what happens until we put the water in the spring. We know that the original investment of the town in the 1980s, the total investment was $7 million, but the town itself put in $5 million. And the appraised value of the property now is over $18 million. So it's a pretty good investment when they put the $5 million in. And we think that with a nice pool, the appraised value would be even higher. We consider ourselves, though, this is something Rod wants me to make clear, is that we consider ourselves stewards, and we're not pushing this big fancy pool. We think it's the best alternative, but we'll leave it up to the town to decide. We've had all kinds of input from people around town, and we believe that the town people want a pool. And we also believe we will not have a pool in the long run. We will not have a pool. So we're asking for your support. And again, as Jay said, if we don't get the support this year, it really delays the whole process at least 1 year. And if that's what you guys decide, so be it. But we think that the town wants a pool, and they want a continuous pool. They don't want to have a gap where we don't have a pool. We're going to have Vicky running the pool for us. So that's my points. Thank you.
And one last thing before I turn it over to questions is I did receive a cost estimate for this facility. They look at right now, it's about a $10 million facility. I received that Friday afternoon before I emailed it out, before I emailed the packet out to you guys. I need to spend time. That is one architect's opinion of what the cost is that's never worked in Hingham before. So obviously I need to spend some time with Roger and go through those cost estimates, because they included a bunch of architecture and engineering costs that we're trying to fund now in that cost. So, that's the reason why I didn't include any in-depth. That's part of this whole process, is figuring out the final cost of the project, but it's about a $10 million facility.
And when you get to that stage, you'll put in an RFP for construction.
Everything, yep, through Roger. Creates his workload quite a bit.
Warren, do you want to speak or not? It's up to you.
Is it appropriate now? I'd love to. I'd always love to speak. I'm Warren Pellisier, 682 Main Street. I'd like to just give you 3 perspectives from my point of view. First, as a citizen of the town, I kind of take a look at this as Bill was saying earlier, as stewards of this fine country club. I think that anyone that's been around the town for a while would note that since Jay has taken over and the country club committee has really come and coalesced around the country club, it's one of the finest clubs around. As a matter of fact, I'm a member at Black Rock and I play at South Shore. I'm not exactly sure why I'm paying a membership at Black Rock, but that's all right. So as this asset, which I think is one of the town's greatest assets, as this continues to grow, we have responsibilities to maintain that asset. That asset was given to us with a 1952 pool in it. And by the way, the first question that happens at town meeting, can you repair the pool? Okay, that's what everyone's going to want to know. The answer is no. You can't repair the pool. And secondly, if you were going to repair it, you definitely would not put it where it is, which is conveniently at the end of the 18th hole. And as a matter of fact, going up there the other day, I saw one of the balls on top of the tarp that covered the pool. So it's telling me that swimming is not safe in our own town. That question for town hall would be taken away. We know that can't happen. We also know if we don't rebuild or build a pool, our asset devalues. And I don't think that as being a good steward to the town, that's exactly what we're trying to do. So as a citizen, I look at this and say, I would love to be able to have our high school team swim in Hingham. I know Notre Dame would love to have their girls swim at Hingham and not UMass Boston. So they have all agreed to be part and parcel of this program. The great thing about Notre Dame is that their season is an off season. So they swim at a different season than our girls and boys swim at. So we can accommodate both programs. That's great from a town citizenship. It's also, I take a look at this from, I no longer have a young family, I've got an aging family, let's put it that way. But as we did bring up our kids here, we were always looking for where we would bring them. Where is a central gathering spot for the kids? And there really wasn't one other than athletic facilities that had baseball or hockey or whatever is in there. This is a fantastic answer for the young, the middle-aged, and the old alike. This is something that can provide as a great service. So that's looking at this as a citizen. I also was forced by my wife, who does not want me home very often, to start a few nonprofits. And one of those nonprofits is South Shore SNAP, and it stands for Special Needs Athletic Partnership. And it's for our special needs kids in town. And we offer many, many different programs for them, about 24 different programs for the kids and their parents to enjoy. One of the things that you may or may not know is that these kids have to go to school in the month of July. They go to school from 9 to 12 in the morning in the month of July. Kind of ruins a lot of vacation schedules, a lot of Cape homes and things like that, but that's what they have to do. And then someone's going to pick them up and take care of them after that. So what we did in conjunction with South Shore Country Club is that we created a summer program for these kids. So buses pick them up at the various schools in Hingham and outside of Hingham, and at 12 o'clock, they bring them over to South Shore Country Club where they can enjoy a nice lunch. We're the second largest employer behind Vicky's group and Mark's group of Hingham youth, 16 to 18-year-olds. We've got 69 mentors that are paid during the summer at this program to mentor each one of those kids in our program. After they have lunch, they split up into 3 separate groups. One group actually bowls, the next group plays golf, the next group plays tennis, and then they rotate all the way until it's 4:30, 4:45, and their parents pick them up. It's a fantastic program. We are sold out. We're already sold out of this year. So we know that we've maxed out. It's a fantastic program. Why I'm mentioning this is that in the month of July, these kids look at a pool 5 days a week, and they use it one day. And it's the last day of the program because the open swim is not open at that time. We reverse the times of the program. So they get a chance to use a pool one day in the month of July. I'd like to be able to change that for the kids. My last hat that I wear, again, one more time because of timing issues, another 501c3 that was formed is Friends of South Shore Country Club. And as part of the work that I did at the Hingham Sports Partnership in the fields process and working closely with Roger, who was invaluable in the development partnership in producing those fields, but also in the fundraising effort. We realized how to raise funds and how to approach the community and also, I look at this, not only are we stewards of this, but we also have to participate in it too. So showing that you have some skin in the game really does help these projects go along and get started, get off the dime. From my perspective, what the Friends of South Shore Country Club will deliver is a fundraising element that will equal at least what we did for the Fields project. It's something that people can get their arms around, and they love the opportunity. Not only that, we have tremendous advertising possibilities here. The one thing that I ask you for is I hope you support this project. I would love you to support this project because it gives us something to fundraise against. It's showing that the town's committed to the project. It's very difficult to fundraise against something that's ethereal. So that's all I have to say. I thank you very much.
Thanks, Warren. Questions?
One detail, by the way, I think it's great the way it's going, and the range of things you're offering is very impressive. As a practical thing, I'm just thinking it might make sense to reverse the showers in the bathrooms in the building, because usually you shower and then you go into the changing area, and to have to go down the hall, even a short distance, just seems awkward. And I think if you just flip them, you'd have, bathroom, shower, changing locker, which is the way the present bathhouse is. And on the positive side, I'm glad to see the lockers, because there hasn't been room in the new bathhouse for various reasons to get lockers. And, people need a place to put their clothes and put them on. But anyway, congratulations on the comprehensiveness of the design, and particularly the warm water. 'Cause I can imagine people benefiting from that.
I think the warm water would be a good addition.
Yeah.
So Jay, the siding is definite?
That's the location that we're honing in on, yep,
So the construction plans are gonna be
for that location.
that, okay. And also, can you tell us again about the size of the meeting room and the fitness room? They may not stay this small, they may
I
grow.
wanted them to be bigger. When I originally talked to him, right after I heard about where you guys were with this and what you were looking for, I had said 2,000 and 2,000 each. Like I said, I got this on Friday afternoon. It was like 3 o'clock this afternoon when I was kind of going through it's kind of been a whirlwind. And I said, geez, they're only 1,300 and 1,000. So I haven't even had a chance to ask him yet if that's a issue with the space, with the property there, or not. Like I said in the conversation with Mark, though, if it is that it wouldn't fit, because of the space, I think we would just eliminate the 1,000 square foot multi-purpose room, make a smaller area for childcare, and then just have a larger gym. Fitness.
How many square feet is the Strider's fitness room?
2,000?
But just under 2,000, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's small.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking for
Needs to be
2,000
I
and
think it
2,000.
needs to be
Bigger.
just keep,
Yeah.
yeah.
When I was at the gym on Saturday, where I go, I was kind of measuring it out based on panes of glass, and 2,000 is actually, I mean, I know it looks tight down there because of where it is, but when you have it not in the basement, it doesn't look that big. I mean, it looks large,
No, I'm on board for 2,000, and I think 1,300 is.
Small.
Yeah, that's what I told them, and just the way this all has happened, like I said, thankfully, we didn't have the meeting Thursday night because I received the plans Friday morning, so.
Jay, my question is, and for those who have watched CPC work, I mean, you know what the numbers are this year, and I think we talked about this before, so your ask is 300. But the committee may, by doing numbers, find out that we just don't have 300, but we have another X. I know you've got your fundraiser here, so you're looking for a commitment. I guess my point is, you're not saying it's 300 or nothing. You're saying you
No.
want a commitment, because very often we do end up saying there are other projects that can be or not get done, and they can get done with less. So
No,
are we able
definitely-
to?
We definitely have to do some heavy-duty fundraising to do the construction document work to get that running. But, we're looking for a serious commitment from you guys, yeah. Yep.
Bigger windows in the pool, they look quite small, and the pool seems sort of dank sometimes, not having a light.
The idea is that, there's one thing, when we met with the architects, the main thing we want out of once we build this, is to be able to see the golf course, so we want as many windows as possible. We want you to be inside, but we sited it in a spot that you'd be able to see the golf course, because that's what we think one of the reasons, other than the fact it's the only community pool in town, why they love the pool where it is, because it's beautiful,
It's nice to look up and see light,
Yeah.
and not just be in this enclosed
Yeah.
space.
No, I mean, one of the ideas is that you'd be able to see the golf course from everywhere,
The outdoor pool is one where the putting green is now.
Yes, yep.
So everything you're doing is in an area that quote unquote.
Swimming, you don't see.
Yep, yeah, and it doesn't, it's not even in a buffer zone.
And you've got no water within.
It's not even in a buffer zone. Yeah. And actually, it keeps the driving range intact. This is the driving range tee, right here.
Right.
So we get to keep the driving range. So it's literally just the chipping area, the practice bunker, and the whole practice putting green.
How does the size of the lap pool compare to the run that you have now?
It's about the same. Yeah, it's about the same. Yeah, 6 lanes, yeah. It's about the same. It's about what, it's about, it's a high school teams could swim in it for practices, for meets, 6-lane, 25-yard lap pools. The Wellesley pool that they're doing is a 15-lane lap pool in a 4,000 square foot warm pool inside, so it's a $20 million project.
Any questions from the audience for Jay?
I'd like to make one response with regard to less than 300. You need to keep in mind that we are already putting in a substantial amount, and if that number goes down, it's just a bigger hurdle for us to have to reach. And I'm not saying we can't, but there's a chance we may not be able to. The bigger the gap, the harder it's going to be to meet that. It's $471,000 is what we estimate the cost to be. So we are hoping that Warren will be able to pick up the difference, and it's a question whether, I just don't want to say it's a given that we can make up more than that.
If he just drops the BlackRock membership,
Yeah.
and we're good to go.
Vicki, I understand where you're going there. From strictly a fundraising perspective, they're smart people, so they're going to take a look and say, is it half? Did the town put in half? Did they put in a quarter? Did they put in what? How committed are they to the project? So it makes fundraising more difficult. The less we get, the more difficult it is to raise funds against the remainder.
The questions, Jim?
Yeah, that said, though, you should consider that, given the fact that we have this much pot and this much to fill, and all of them are, really sound, important projects, it's not a vote of no confidence if you get somewhat less than 300. So,
I'm not saying that it's not a vote of confidence, it's just another hurdle we have to go
Sure.
through the fundraising process. And trust me, we would like to get, well, number one, we'd love to have CPC say that we support this project and we support it with money. That's an important statement for us to make, no matter what. And so, Jim, we appreciate your attention to this.
And the other point to that is not only does CPC support it, but inevitably town meeting hopefully supports it too. And then we have that on top of 2 years in a row support at town meeting along with CPC. So.
Are any funds committed to date, privately?
Not yet. Yeah, we raised $50,000 through a golf tournament, but we've spent most of it already. It will be maxed out with the peer review.
Thank you very much, Jay. Oops, way in the back.
25-yard. Yeah.
I'm a swimmer and I run behind the pool. I don't run like most people who do around here.
Be like 2 miles from here.
Lots of swimming. Okay, thank you,
All right,
Jay.
thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
All right. I have to leave to go to the party, so it's not
Merry
because I don't want to
Christmas. Yeah,
stay.
Enjoy your party.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, next we're going to hear about the Hull Street Field play area. Mark Thorell. They send them more press referral. It's too much.
Can we just live like that?
Harbor Media, can you see his presentation?
Yes, I can.
Good, thank you. Scary.
Mark Thorell, Director of Recreation. Thank you for having me tonight. So we do not have any new major updates from the first presentation. Just a quick update, the Rec Commission is asking for $85,000 to fund a new playground at the Hull Street Field. We feel as though we have a lot of community support behind this project. In fact, a community member has created even a Facebook page with quite a few followers on it. And we're really excited and hoping to move forward in here tonight to see if there's any further questions.
Such a chatty group, aren't we?
It's nice to have it all really steady. And we've got
Take that as a
support,
good
community
sign,
support.
Mark.
Yeah.
No questions. Take it as a good mark. I think you did such a good presentation the first time around. I haven't heard one question.
Sounds good to me.
So next year, you want to be sloppier in the.
All right.
Thank you very much. I
Nice going.
appreciate it.
Looks beautiful.
They should all be so good. Next is Harbor Walkway on the bandstand parcel, and Bill Reardon being in some wonderful foreign warm place. We've got Alan Peralt tonight from Bathing Beach Trustees.
Thank you. Alan Peralt, 39 Elm Street, the chairman of the Bathing Beach Trustees. As Deirdre pointed out, the prior chairman of the Harbor Development Committee. So, as Deirdre pointed out earlier, fortunately because of CPC in 2007, the master plan was done. So a lot of things we've been picking off project by project have been things that were thought of 11 years ago in a master plan. And a large part of that was the idea of a harbor walk. I'm a big physical fitness outdoor person, but there are people whose idea of outdoor fitness is walking, you know? And I think sometimes that's an important consideration for us to think of when we're thinking of that. It certainly works with people of all ages, and I think that's the one thing that this does. As an aside, I worked in the Ridgewood Crossing project. We actually did a survey, and Deirdre probably referred to the survey that we did that she did for the Harbor Walk. But when we developed that, the most important thing to people who were over 55 when we did a survey was walking trails. So I think it resonates, and if you've ever been to other communities that have them, you know, my son went to the University of Miami, in Coral Gables, Coconut Grove, all those places have boardwalks, you know. And we're not talking a great length. I mean, from one end, from the Grove all the way down to Barnes Wharf is 0.8 of a mile. But by creating an atmosphere where that is encouraged, I think, and we've come a long way. As you're all aware, we did the first part to the left of where that walkway is now, along the bathing beach, which quite honestly held up very well this past storm, by the way, you know, compared to some other areas that didn't. We've done the Armorstone wall over by the Grove. Deirdre, I'm going to have you advance the slides. Okay, there we go. We're working on that right now before the deep freeze came in. So all the prep work has already been done. The lower picture in the lower left-hand corner is where the existing boardwalk, it's about 300 feet long along the bathing beach, ends, and we're just going to widen it and start to turn, and it's going to go to the Grove all the way down towards Crow Point. The budget on that is, I think, $144,000, I believe, Roger. And we're pretty confident that we can meet that. The grades are a little bit trickier here than they were. The parking lot is flat as a pancake, so doing a walkway along the parking lot was not much of a challenge. The grade, as many of you know, shifts a little bit when you get into the Grove. We're still comfortable bringing in for that number, but the challenge is going to be a little bit more working with the grade. So there's a few areas we're going to need some granite curbing, not all the way through, but just make up for grade differentials. So that work will certainly be completed in the spring. This then gets you, this is then getting to the south side of the existing boardwalk. Farmers market must be set up here, because I can see a vehicle parked there. We're also talking, by the way, of moving the farmers market into the Grove this year. And they're very encouraged about that concept, because one thing I hadn't thought of, farmers market on a hot asphalt parking lot isn't really the best thing in the world. So this area won't get disturbed as much. I think it becomes more of a pedestrian access. So this is the area where we're going to then pick up the walkway. Deirdre, I might have you go back to the earliest slide if we can. Okay, so the concept here is the new bathhouse is essentially going to be in this general area. Just at the other thing I have to go back to. I made the mistake of telling you people I probably would be back before we for any more money. And then in the process of doing the survey for the bathhouse, we found out that we actually controlled the Grove area. So Harbor Development had looked at this last year, so we agreed to kind of do it jointly. So this section of the walkway is something that's going to get you right out to the sidewalk on 3A. And it's going to line up at different points with the parking lot and the bathhouse. And then the rest takes you to basically where we begin the parking lot for the boat ramp.
Bathing Beach trustees now controls the bandstand.
We now control the bandstand parcel, the gazebo parcel. So we're extending it right to the edge of what I call the boat ramp parcel. The boat ramp is being designed right now by the state, and that is, as many of you know, was funded by the state, that parking lot work. So when they redesign the boat ramp, they'll do the parking lot. So our thought is certainly to incorporate on their dime the walkway through that area, which essentially then gets us out towards Town Pier. And certainly I think the advisory committee members are aware that the Harbor Development is working on that, on the wharf studies. And I think when that work is done, the idea would be to have a boardwalk as part of that construction, so it wouldn't be a CPC project. So what I guess my main appeal to you would be, unlike somebody else, this is a hard thing to fundraise for. It isn't quite as tangible as an indoor pool or something else. I think everyone appreciates it, but it's a harder thing to fund. And I believe this honestly is the last time that we'd really, because the rest of the wharfs, the rest of the walkway along this is going to be along bulkheads. And if we're doing work on those particular bulkheads, the walkway can be incorporated in, because a lot of the money is into site work. So if you're already working on a bulkhead and doing that work, the brick walkway behind it's a relatively small component of that. So, and as Deirdre's showing there, it was one of the highest priorities in the survey that was done. So, and even many of you who've been down there, I think when we did our site walk, there were people walking along it even then at like 8 o'clock in the morning. And right now it's kind of a walkway to nowhere, because we don't have the area in the Grove and we don't continue it across the gazebo parcel. But even at that, it's kind of like the pedestrian bridge, where people just go across it for the sake of going across it. And I think that certainly shows you how people use this type of asset. The budget on this, I think Bill estimated it's about 150 to 160. That includes a contingency, which quite honestly we could might be able to live without. We've done okay with these. And we're also, I know Larry last year had made a point of making sure we tried to get whatever funds we could. We applied to DCR. We weren't successful, but I think over half the people that applied were successful. So I've got a little more optimism that if we went in this year, Carol developed a pretty good rapport with the woman there, and they can't fund everything. But I would think if we started to show the commitment to the state that, look, this is it, this is our last piece, we'd have a fighting chance of getting some money back on this. So I'm fairly optimistic, as much as you can be on grants. But Rogers had good luck. Our funding we got for the bathhouse was the second time we applied. So oftentimes they have to know who you are, what your project is. So I think we have a much more reasonable chance of getting some funding. I would hope maybe a third or thereabouts. That's the more common thing they fund. We'd apply for as much as we can, but realistically, they tend to fund about 25 to 35% of the projects from what we've seen. So that would be our goal, would be try to do that. And again, I know you've got a lot. I guess the only thing I can say is, this committee is the one that started this whole thing with a master plan, 11 years ago. And this is really one of the last major pieces of it, is to finish it, because we'll have the walk to the Grove, to the beach, and by getting it to the parking lot for the boat ramp, I think we really would have made a major statement. And then it's a good argument to the state to take us the rest of the way, because it's in place, So with that.
Is that the gazebo?
No, that was just a concept at the time to have certain shade pavilions, Jim, at that. And actually, speaking of which, many of you remember a town meeting a couple of years ago about the Melville Gardens gazebo or pavilion, whatever it is. It now looks like it may more likely go in the trustees' land, because the idea of doing it out on one of the harbor islands turned out to be not all that practical, and working on it there. So Sidney McCullough is working on that, has already gone to historic districts about the concept. And we kind of laid out the walkway through the Grove to accommodate it. So almost when you first came into the Grove, there'll probably be a shade structure. They've already got some money to do it. But again, it's part of the overall idea of creating something there. Yeah.
We got
We did that.
We did it.
You did, okay. So, so I guess that's about it. I mean,
Could've just slid over that.
is that a sore subject? Okay. It's not really ours. I mean, the idea is we were asked, would we accommodate it? I don't think it's a bad idea if they do it, so.
Now, is this without the dune or apart
Yeah,
from
that
the
was
dune?
before we envisioned the dune, exactly, Jim. I mean, obviously, this was envisioning, we would have had problems last week if we had a boardwalk like this. I mean, the other advantage, I'm actually glad you raised this point, is, you know, we've done things that are kind of protected, and the area where we get to the gazebo parcel, we have a much bigger stretch of beach. I've often said that that's the better beach than the bathing beach. So we tend not to have problems there because there's room for the tides to kind of come and go. So the walkway would be back enough that everything we've done so far, you know, knock on wood, has done very well. I mean, we've designed for a 14 to 15-foot elevation, which is harder for us to get in Hingham Harbor than open areas. Even Boston Harbor is more open than we are. So I was pleased last week to go down the day after the storm, and every stick of our snow fencing and the walkway has held up very well. So, and again, I'd like to commend Roger. We really don't have funding to speak of. As Bob Morse used to say, we're in harbor development. We didn't have any money or authority. We've got a little bit of money, but very little to run basically goose control in a bathhouse, you know. So, but thanks to Roger and Tom at the engineering department, we've been able to get a lot more bang for our buck by having in-house engineering services.
And I'm puzzled.
Yeah, Jim.
I thought the gazebo was going uphill on the Grove.
Yeah.
But you just referred to it being by the bigger, broader beach.
No,
Seconds
I don't
Beach.
think I did. No, the idea was, if they did it, it would be up in the Grove. And
Okay.
again, that hasn't been decided. I mean, they proposed it to us, and we said, you know, we can accommodate it, whether it happens or not. I mean, we have space in the Grove to put it if it happens.
And with the
That or a
elevation-
shade structure.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I thought for a moment you were describing the bigger beach.
No, I was just saying the bigger beach as far as that area can withstand. We don't have a seawall there, but that area, quite honestly, doesn't get damaged by storms because the beach is deeper. We didn't have that issue with the bathing beach.
Okay.
The bathing beach was so shallow. We
Yeah.
actually, as many of you remember, we actually cut the parking lot back to have a more gradual repose of that beach, so we didn't get the damage that we used to, 3 and 4 years ago. So,
Thanks.
if there's any other questions, but
Questions from the audience? We put them all to sleep.
When would work start?
probably ideally in the fall, I would think, Dan, because you probably wouldn't want to do it during the summer. We would have liked to have started this year a little earlier, but, we didn't expect the deep freeze we got as soon as we did. But I think maybe right after Labor Day would probably be the best scenario. Certainly by this time next year would be in. That's the best time to do that kind of work. We have a lot less activity at the beach once we get past Labor Day. A lot less demand on our parking lot. Yeah.
Road work be done?
Would have been done by now. Probably it'll probably be the very first, if not the latter part of the winter, the first part of the spring. I mean, most of the materials there, most of the hard prep work has been done. It's now just a matter of, getting it done. We kind of thought we would by now. And the similar time 2 years ago, they did the armor stone wall in about 3 weeks, that protects that area. But we had better weather 2 years ago. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
And last but not least tonight, Hingham Affordable Housing Trust. It's here. Oh, good. Got Britton DeBose and Tim White.
Britton DeBose, Affordable Housing Trust with Tim White, our chairman. And we're just back, I think this is my third time, to complete any, or answer any questions you all may have. We were requesting $500,000 in opportunity funding, really for us to be able to seize opportunities to increase our inventory of affordable housing in Hingham. Have a lot of projects underway, or rather some topics, some projects underway, and we're really trying to use that opportunity funding to seize opportunities that come up that are hard to identify, frankly, at this point, but that we're always out looking for. So I don't know if there are any questions.
Well, there's a little topic to bring up.
Yes.
Through the brilliance of Carol Costello, who must wake up at 3 in the morning thinking about all this stuff. Years ago, we granted $175,000 for a project for you all on Beale Street. And through all kinds of circumstances and the wishes of the selectmen, that most of that 175 is sitting in a fund for you, and you can't use it because the selectmen have sort of said, hold off on Beale Street until we see the ramifications of all the new construction that's going in there, affordable housing. I think that's logical. So for the foreseeable future, you've got that in a lockbox and nobody can use it. So Carol wakes up at 3 in the morning and says, wait a minute, we can claw that back from you and assign that to you, to your opportunity fund, to use for whatever you need it for. And I know you haven't had a chance to vote on it yet, but I gather the consensus of the committee is that that's going to work for you? Okay.
It's going to be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, I think it's 17th. Yeah, so we'd like to put that forward to the trust, just for discussion.
How does it sound to you guys? To you two?
I mean, I think we have to discuss it with them. Tim and I have obviously discussed it ourselves, but I think that, takes away from, it's an understandable position. It takes away from our ask a bit, because we were thinking that we would have that money and then an additional $500,000.
That hasn't been decided.
Well,
That could still
absolutely,
happen.
but that was in our calculation of how we came up with the $500,000. But it's understandable, given, what has not been happened with the selectmen parcel, but is, we're always brainstorming ideas of how that could progress in some way. But I think it's something we just have to put to the trust, but, is very reasonable to be asked, for sure.
You all haven't heard anything more than we've heard about the selectmen's thoughts on that.
We haven't, and actually, one of the things that we're talking about doing with some of the funds that we have is to actually get a needs study done.
Right.
And we might even identify that selectmen's parcel as being a potential project. But
Right.
as you folks probably are aware, originally it came in as potential home ownership. Then they talked about possible rentals, and then we talked about an assisted living facility, which is still something I think that the trust is very interested in working with because of the lower impact on the neighborhood. So.
But Carol, excuse me, was that 175 voted to the trust? Was that voted to, was actually voted for the trust
As a
use?
project, not to the opportunity fund.
But to the trust, not to the authority? That's separate
To the
from-
trust, yes,
yeah, that's
yes,
separate
yes.
from the money we use
Yeah.
for design and.
It was given
park
to you.
facilities.
Yeah.
Right.
And 41,000 has been used, that was on initial,
On studies and wetlands and things
might do
that,
to
things
it.
that we'll get use of, whether it's today, next year, or 5 years from now. They'll
Right.
be very helpful.
do you have any concerns your committee will not vote to do that? Because we're up against the time to vote now.
I mean, we can't speak for the committee, but we all recognize that we don't have something planned for Selectmen's parcel in the near future.
Okay.
And the fact that that money gets transferred into an opportunity doesn't mean that we couldn't use it as an opportunity with a Selectmen's parcel.
Sure.
If something came up. So it's not, it doesn't seem to me it's going to be a contentious meeting.
No.
We've got great trust members, and they're all reasonable people.
And of course, that doesn't limit what you can get. We haven't even discussed it or voted
Sure.
on
Right.
anything, so.
Sure.
Just add.
Like Britton says, we'll take it all.
Yeah,
Right,
no.
exactly.
Because we'll find a use for it, and a good use for it. But we understand it's not a bottomless.
And it seemed like such a good solution to a year when the money is so tight, and you hear
Yeah.
all these wonderful projects that
Right.
all don't have this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just wanted to check with you on that.
It's reasonable.
Questions from the committee? Thoughts in the audience? No? Yes, yeah.
Christine Smith, 2 Park Circle. I'm just curious, I haven't, why the 500? Is there a certain need for the 500 versus a 300 or 200? I haven't been involved. I
Christine,
know we need a lot of affordable housing in this town.
I guess the easiest way to explain the need for that kind of money is that we started the Opportunity Fund a few years back. And we explained to CPC and to the town that you just never know what opportunity is going to come up. And we have had a few come up. We purchased a property out of foreclosure, but we kind of knew intuitively, and it has now proven over time, that the opportunities are tough to grasp because of the cost of real estate in our community. So that's really what it comes down to, is that We always had an idea of how much is one added unit to our inventory worth. And unfortunately, it's kind of creeped up in value because we have such a beautiful community with very expensive real estate.
Right, right. And I just didn't know with Broadstone coming on and there's 2 affordable units that are now off of Beale Street, I didn't know if there was something that was, if you had identified something that was the reason for this.
Right now, we don't.
Okay.
Yeah, and of the funds that we have besides what has been earmarked for selectmen's parcel, about 60% of that, you can say, or have been aligned to different projects and topics that we've been discussing, like this plan that needs assessment and plan that we've talked about. So, we only have 30% remaining, and when opportunities come up, we need the flexibility to be able to seize those opportunities and do a renovation or, whatever it may be. So it's really just making sure that we are positioning ourselves to take advantage of those extremely limited, often challenging.
I'd like to comment on the perception that we have a lot of affordable housing because we have some large projects like Avalon. Only 25% have to be quote affordable, and with the range of incomes, a good number of those are the very richest of the poor. They aren't really affordable. So that even though we have a lot of market rate units being created through 40B, only a quarter of them are even close to affordability.
We need more family affordable housing, we need more senior affordable housing. I mean, the wait list at Lincoln School is ridiculous. So, I mean, we've got disabled folks that are talking about coming to see us about setting up some kind of affordable housing and that.
Right.
And we just talked about the possibility, there's no assisted living facility that has an affordable component to it,
Right.
to speak of. So, the needs are all out there, and we'll never be able to fill them, but with your help, we'll be able to put a dent in it.
You're doing a great job, thank you, sir.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, gang, that's it.
There's a mistake, Carol. There's 2. I'm gonna make that announcement in a minute. We haven't got into that yet, right?
But that point stays in the minutes.
Oh, you got a boo-boo in it?
It's really misunderstood.
Yes, the meeting's still going on. We are going into a discussion now about our pre-voting process. When you check off who you want to vote for on a ballot and stick it in the machine that grabs it from you and counts it, that's a vote. It's sealed. You can't come back an hour later and change your mind or anything else. That's a vote. What we're going to do for the next 24 hours, we don't have much time, is a pre-voting practice that helps us to figure out how we want to vote. And you'll have in your packet now a paper copy of what your sort of practice thing looks like. And it lists how much money we have for the year to spend. It lists, oh, what changed? It wasn't changing? No, I forgot to do it. Ooh, okay, let me go over with them then. So, it says due January 9th. You all have the same page in front of you? And the 27 pages we gave you? I think we attached to that one. Exactly. You have to have sticky fingers. Okay. So this is what it looks like. The first thing I need to tell you is there's 2 forms of this. You can either fill out the paper form that's in your hand, or Carol's going to send it out by email on a form that I must confess I've never been able to do. It's coming from the computer illiterate generation that I'm in. I fill it out, and it looks like it's doing everything right, and I won't go back to Carol. So I don't know why, but that's why I continue to ask for the paper form. Jim and I are going to sit and hold hands and vote on our paper forms, but if you guys are smart enough to know how to do that online, the advantage to Carol is that as you fill out your form, her machine automatically adds the tally on the bottom for you and puts it in correctly the way you've added it, makes it a lot easier. For those of us who can't do that, don't seem to be able to figure out how to send that back, you have to drop this off at Carol's office by the 9th. Sound familiar? That's tomorrow. The 9th, tomorrow. So this is an assignment you've got tonight and tomorrow before, how long you gonna be, at 4 o'clock or something?
Or you can call.
Or call it in.
Yeah, email it, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I'd love you to email it.
Make sure everyone gets the mistakes that are on this.
Yes,
We're gonna
now,
know
we're gonna
that.
go through that in a minute, but. Yeah, and the total.
I have the total written down as well.
Okay, so what I want to tell you first is about the two forms. So if you're smarty pants and can do it on computer, go right ahead. It's easier for Carol. If not, you do it on paper. It's very self-explanatory in that it has the total budget on top. That's what we have to spend for the year. And remember, we've talked several times about it changes during the years as people pay their 1.5% and it comes into the town treasurer and we finally get this. This is the number we're stuck with right now. This will be it. And then the projects are listed. One change to make on your form is, if you remember, the Hingham Cemetery landscaping, Ruth Davis brought that down to $15,000 request. Okay? And the Memorial Bell Tower, you can, I thought it was either one. You can vote on either one. Their original request was for 28 something.
28,535 for 2 bells.
For
versus
2 bells is
28,535.
535.
That's for 2 bells, and for all 10 bells, it's 133,832. That will bring our total down, total request. If we put in the 10 bells, I just put in 1, but it brings your request up to 1,827,344.
Either or.
And it's a $10 practical?
28,000, which is what they asked for.
Carol, does it have to be an either or
It can
just
be
any
anything. So
number
now we
you
get to the
want?
general rules of doing this. First one is don't chat with people. Do it yourself. Do it in a quiet place, turn off the ball game, concentrate on this. And one of the big reasons we do it this way is it makes you do your math. You can't come into the meeting on the 10th and start to figure out your math. It's an open conversation. You'll want to be hearing and participating in that. You can't be constantly erasing your bottom number and changing it. You can put whatever you want as long as the bottom line isn't more than we have to spend, which is
15,548?
yes.
That's the real number.
That's the real number. Okay?
What's the significance of the 569,931 down the bottom?
Okay.
We should.
Okay, that's a good question.
It's right down.
Good point. So that box at the bottom reminds us that the 3 main categories, open space, housing, and historic, all get 10% of what we bring in from the town and the, look at the other pages attached to that one. The town amount for this year is $1,011,000. You see that one at the top of the other page? And the federal matching, the state matching is $174,000. So the total of those two is $1,185,000, and we have to give 10% of that number to each of the 3 major categories. Okay? So that comes, that's the.
Set it aside.
Now, on top of that, anything that's clawed back that was part of that original 10% from either of the categories also goes into their reserve, and we have to give that to them. That brings up this craziness about the housing that you just heard. Why are we doing it this way? Well, let's see. The $332,000 under housing, which we have to give them, is made up of, oh, you have a sheet, great. It's a combination of their 10% plus clawed back money from several projects, including the one we just talked about.
Oh, so that's happening, that clawback?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're going to do that. So let's see, here it is at the bottom. 10% of historic preservation, 165, that's preservation. 10% of open space is 118. What did you add in here?
It's the
118.
debt service you have to give.
Where did 315 come from?
That's the debt service.
So that's the debt service, so
Oh, I'm sorry, you've
118 is
added
put
debt, I
aside.
was just looking at the clawback, okay. The important one is that housing clawback, it's not on here.
Should be.
So can you tell us where the
It should be right
It's
there,
the-
Carol, at the bottom.
Bottom.
It's at the bottom, I added it
total
in.
remaining after debt service,
No, above that. 2 lines above that.
Committed to reserve, and above that, community housing in prior reserve. Oh, there it is, okay. So it's $80,000, which came from the Whiting Street,
In other projects that would, yep.
and the 321, which came
So it
from.
totals 332.
Right, but where's it come from?
10% and the clawback.
It's the 10%, the 118,
And the
plus the
clawback.
80,000, plus the
Is the
133,000.
133 the selectmen's parcel?
Correct.
Oh, okay, they should, okay. You just got them spread out.
So the
So,
232
okay,
is with the
everybody
10%.
get that? 118 is their 10% for this year. 80 was because we clawed back the property on Whiting Street. Remember, we went in, there was one house. Roger looked at it and said, we can put 3 houses here, and Habitat for Humanity is going to build them, but we still have to give them some money. Anyway, that came back from there, and the 133 came back from the Beale Street property.
Was
We
that
can do
Whiting
this.
Street house the antique, the very old?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
But it's not being knocked down, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Habitat.
Yeah.
It's not antique or anything, it's like a 60s.
Oh, it's not an antique?
No.
I thought
Oh,
it was
no,
on-
it's not historical.
Nice
It's,
house.
yeah,
Pretty
it's
invaluable.
an older
Another
house.
Whiting
Nice
Street
house.
house.
Yeah.
A couple of cycles
Way
ago
back,
that was
yeah.
represented.
Okay, I feel like we should have a quiz about now. Anybody want to explain what I just said?
Well, I think it's important for the new guys to know that when you fill this out, that's not your final vote. Then we come in and hash it out.
Right.
And what do we see? Do we see the results of all the votes?
Everybody.
We talk, yeah, we talk, so this is what you're saying, this is my vote
Yeah.
before everybody talked about it.
Carol
This is
does a
what I would do if
spreadsheet.
it were just me.
I'll
And
send you the
beyond
spreadsheet
here
tonight.
will be your name and my name and everybody else. They all have a line.
Can you say what the, I'm sorry, the 133, the Beale Street property is which?
You're already covered.
133,
But
Due to
which
Lane
property?
and for Heritage, you're already
That's
covered.
not,
Beale Street.
I mean, that's not the money
Selectmen's
that's
parcel.
talking
That's the selectmen's parcel.
Selectmen's parcel on
Okay,
Beale
okay.
Street.
Not our Beale Street land.
No, no.
Just if
This,
this-
and this,
So you
Carol
come
will
back
send
in
this out
on the
with numbers.
10th, and Carol's going to
You
give
can
you the
print it out
spreadsheet
if
that
you
looks
would,
like
and
a
bring it to her.
continuation
Or
of
get your
this.
computer to do
It has
it.
everybody's vote on it.
Yeah,
I can do it online, you can.
sorry.
That's
What?
okay. You'll get a spreadsheet with everybody's vote. You'll see everyone's voting on each process. And then we start going through them. Okay. There's only going to be 8 of us voting.
Oh, because of Sarah.
Sarah, Corey has had a concussion and has not been able to follow what we're doing and doesn't know enough about what's happening, so she's confused herself and won't be voting. And the way we vote is we don't average it all out and divide by 8 or anything. That would give no one exactly what they're looking for. What we do is if you have a majority that agree on one thing, and it can be nothing at all for them, everything they've asked for, and then some, or someplace in between. And we average that all out, and then because we rarely come up with consensus right away, we start hashing it out, and well, I thought this, no, you thought that, and so forth.
And you'll change your mind on certain
Yeah.
of your numbers.
You
as
listen to other people's opinions, and it will change your mind sometimes.
You, not him.
And you don't even
He's
have to
gonna stick
spend
with
it all. You can save it if you want. You don't have to spend it.
That's right.
You can
We
hold
don't-
on
That's
to
a
it.
good point.
Yeah, you don't have, we
Thank
don't
you.
have to spend every penny
We can
available.
wait till next year.
The deadline for calling into Carol is when?
Tomorrow,
Tomorrow,
I mean,
by 3:30.
midnight?
4 o'clock in the afternoon.
3:30.
It's 3:30.
We lock the
She's
door
got
at
to go
4,
home.
sorry,
Yeah.
3:30.
3:30. And you can call her on the phone and give her the numbers.
Yeah.
But I think writing it down and handing it to her is probably safer.
Sure, I just,
But Carol, you're gonna send
I'll
this
be
to us?
sending out the spreadsheet to you tonight, and then you can play
your
with
phone?
your numbers.
your phone,
Are you ready?
781.
you should know it.
Now, what crazy questions do we have?
I just want to make a clarification, Cal. The
2306.
money that's in the reserves, if it's not spent, it just stays in the reserves. In other words, you don't have to give it, you don't have to, I think you mentioned that maybe you have to give it give a certain amount to a particular group because they're in that category. It could be, you don't have to do anything.
Well, because we're so covered by our outstanding debt. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the only difference is when you begin to look at those numbers, if you decide, for example, in community housing, you want to spend 60,000, that doesn't meet the 118 that's necessary to be set aside. So really, what you're saying is we're taking 60,000 minus 118, we're letting that stay in the reserve, so the money doesn't get spent, doesn't go to anyone. So that value either gets spent or goes back into the reserve. But
For them.
for them, yeah, so, but just so you understand, so you might not end up with the full amount that's shown on the spreadsheet, because you have to put some back into reserve.
Another
It gets a little
point,
confusing, but we're here to help if you need it.
another point is, just because a project is small and isn't very expensive, we don't just do it anyway. You have to be able to explain it to your neighbor why you voted to spend their money on something, and why. Remember, our goal is to preserve the beautiful town we have, to augment it with facilities maybe that we don't have, to improve the town in any way that we think. So you think about things like, how many people will ever see this? Maybe it's worthwhile, but will anybody ever see it? 20 years from now, will it still be here for the town to see, and will it still be something we're proud of? If you had company coming into town and you were going to show them downtown beautiful Hingham, would you take them by to see this project, or would you think it's not very important? And we think about all the areas of town. It's not just the beautiful downtown. There's neighborhoods that maybe have been left out a little bit from recreation projects or from housing and other things. There's a lot of layers. It's like three-dimensional tic-tac-toe. It's lots to think about.
To what extent is that 50,000 a number that can be worked with, or has it got to be 50,000?
Which was?
I'm sorry, our administrative fund.
That really isn't very flexible. We could cut it short, as we did last year, by 5,000 and end up not having enough in the.
So, I mean, that's almost like debt service, right? I mean, that's 50,000.
It really is, yeah. There's nothing in there unless you want to cut their salaries.
Well, maybe.
Did you have a question?
Like the double.
Let us know, so we won't be here next week.
And by the way, for your reference, we don't control their salaries ever. It's not us. And the legal bills are what they are, and they seem to be fairly consistent year. Paper clips.
Carol, I
anything
think
else?
Tim had a question.
The Housing Trust Opportunity Fund, I think, is our only community housing category, right? So reality is we're looking at between 332 and 500. That's
Or more,
the range.
whatever you
Or
feel
more,
like.
fair enough, but yeah.
But the minimum would be 332.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could be looking
Or you
at
can say
332 or
bring it reserves.
832.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what,
What is we saying?
that's what they're kind of suggesting.
Up to 1.5.
Yeah, but they're suggesting 832, just so you know.
Yeah, technically you could say.
And remember, as you're voting, it's a practice. It doesn't get sealed in cement until we get in here and hash it all out and ask each other questions, and it's sometimes not pretty. We had some not pretty last year, but we'll try to keep that to a dull roar this year.
Landowners is considered what category?
That's open space.
Open space.
I have a question. Should we talk about that?
We still have control of money. Yeah.
We don't have competing meetings this year, though.
Competing
Oh,
what?
I forgot about that.
Remember last year?
Yes.
We did not have one voter present because they had to be at the planning meeting. Yeah.
We tried, but we
We
couldn't.
tried, we did our best.
I got yelled at.
We also got yelled at for being loud and rowdy, if you remember.
And the committed debt
They
service
did.
is separate from the 10%.
No, they yelled at us.
Oh, they yelled at
That's-
us?
We don't,
Yeah, Jim, there's
There's
no
no 10%.
flexibility there. The debt service is
10%
what it
still
is.
applies.
I'm sorry.
Where we have committed debt service, we still
Have to.
are required to have 10% set aside for those areas.
Just the three main areas,
Yeah.
Carol?
housing and open space and historic.
Oh, sorry, Carol Piles. It might be helpful for new people. I mean, I've had people ask me, should they come to this meeting? And obviously, it's an open meeting, they can, but I maybe let people know that they can't speak to us during
Yes.
our votes. They're not here to
Or vote.
advocate
Right, no
or
voting.
vote. It's meant to be our vote. So I just share that in case your project
If you're
calls
really
and says,
bored, wanna
can
come
I
listen?"
come? And, kind of say something.
And we're not filmed, of course, so it's a
No.
nice open conversation.
So they're probably better if they don't come. That's my feeling.
Any anticipated concerns?
So what I was trying to ask was, having committed to the debt service, we've already committed far more than 10%
Yes.
in those two areas.
That's right.
Yeah, you have to give that, Jim. That's why they're in
What are you saying?
red.
You can- that's
Yes, we
considered
cannot, we do not have the option of not paying our debt service.
No, of course not.
That's satisfied.
And we don't have to
Take
go
the beyond the 10% in both categories.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does everybody get that?
19.
We don't need 10% over that.
And that is a concern that was expressed at one of our meetings, is if we're already paying off a debt for an organization do we feel comfortable funding them for another project? It's all stuff you have to decide, what's important to the town. They all sound important to me. I don't know about you guys, but when I listen, I'm all in on every project. Yeah. I'm home if anybody has any calls or questions. I'll put Tom on and he can answer anything you
Yeah, anybody, please feel free to call me. I'm in the office tomorrow from 8 to 4, so.
The only thing you cannot do is go over the bottom line. You cannot vote money we don't have, unless you're gonna donate it, she joked. Yes.
Yeah, can I have a copy?
You all understand that we have a choice for the bell tower, either do them all at once, or do two, or none, or something. I wouldn't make up numbers on that one, like give them 2.5 bells or anything, just. Any questions on any of these? I think they're fairly straightforward this year.
I would just remind people that the Historic Commission confirmed that their consultant could do all the documents, the rest of the, within the times available to them, if they had more money.
On which project?
The historic.
Historic, yes, they do.
Their consultant could do it all.
Oh, that's right, you asked me to say that. So, at one of our presentations from Andrea Young, we asked her why so little money, and she wanted to do about 6 books or something, and Jim asked, well, why not more, and finish the job.
Yeah, and she said their consultant could do it all in the time available.
Yes.
If they have a little more money, which is.
And you point out he's in his 80s?
So am I, but I don't know.
Why, that's just a young guy.
I know, I retract that. He could do it over the next
Can I
several
ask a
decades.
question for clarification? So the pool complex, that's town-owned?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
But it's called an enterprise zone, so they're supposed to aim at covering their own expenses, the whole country club.
It's.
I liked hearing they're still flexible right now.
It's an historic document.
And when you all talked about
petition draft.
how much space for exercise, they're still listening.
Yeah, they
Vicki, I
said
wanted
it.
to ask you too, so if this goes ahead and they build all that, the exercise area that's here in Town Hall would move over there? Is that
I don't think
forgiven?
any of that has been decided, and
Okay.
no conversations have taken place, and I mean, with the current design, I don't think we could do that, because I think it would be too
Not big
busy.
enough, is it?
Would be not big enough.
And
But
there's a
I
commitment
think
to be
Jay's
here.
on it. I mean, he.
Oh, no, he understands,
Yeah.
but it's just,
Because that's an outside wall, it doesn't seem,
no,
from a
and
structural
and
standpoint,
again,
it
you
would
know,
be
that's
that
the
big a
issue
deal.
when you have people who are designing something and not taking input from
Everybody.
the people who are running the one and only fitness. I mean, we know how much square footage you have to have in this town.
You telling me they didn't ask you to come over?
They didn't ask any.
Oh.
I thought
They're
Mark's
not
been
there.
involved. Mark's been
No, but
involved.
not with these kinds of, no, I didn't mean to that. I meant with things
The exercise
regarding
room.
to exercise size. I mean, why would an architect even design something that's absolutely ridiculous? That's just a little over half what we have downstairs. Do you want to go downstairs and see how you'd work
I
out?
thought you guys had
We couldn't
2,000
even do
square
that.
feet.
We do. This is
But
1,300.
that's 13.
Oh, no, but he just said that's.
Oh, no, I'm
It'll
agreeing.
change.
My
It'll
point is
Yeah.
the architect, I mean, I'm not saying Jay, I'm talking about the
Yeah.
architect designed something.
Yeah, no, so let me tell you the way it works with an architect, because
Right.
I've only been doing it for 25 years. Is that you go, this is an iterative process.
Right.
And you begin the conversation, he draws something up, we come back, they change it, they understand the programming needs, it happens with fire stations, DPW buildings, transfer stations, schools, all those projects. So I think what is going to end up happening, what you're seeing here is a conceptual plan,
Right.
a financial plan, and then as you begin to massage and you begin to get community input, you begin to permit the project, it will change slightly.
Right, no,
It
but
will-
Carol's
yeah.
question was, would this take place of the fitness room here as we're looking at it right now?
Be
The
an
answer to
addition.
that would be no.
Right.
Hopefully, it would be able to be large enough to take place.
But it
of
needs to
this.
change a little bit.
That's my only point.
We hear so
I'm not
much about
suggesting that.
space
Space
being
needs,
needed here.
right.
Sure.
So the goal, you would think, would be to make enough space, but again, they're not being able to put enough program rooms over there, so there's
Yeah.
no way the program rooms would be able to leave here.
And I think with the completion of the barn, there's a kind of a strength and commitment to this site for the bulk of the recreation activities.
There is.
Not to put it in the depot or.
Summer program
Great place.
particularly.
I don't know about you all, but I've already been crunching all the way
That's right,
throughout the
that's
year.
right.
You keep crunching the numbers.
Of course.
And it's tough. This is gonna be a tough year.
We've had worse.
We've had worse, that's true. We have had worse. And often you have the instinct to save a few thousand and do something that's bigger than what they wanted because it makes more sense, but when you look at the numbers, you don't know. It's gonna be fun. See what you all think. Dead silence. I'll entertain a motion to.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Jay, you're all set to start when you're ready?